So last night, on Monday Night Raw, not only did we see the return to WWE for the first time in a decade of the Dudley Boys, Devon and Bubba Ray, and welcome back. The debut of Braun Strowman, a new member of the Wyatt family, 6'8" man, he looked a hell of a monster. We also saw in the last segment of the program, which was supposed to be the unveiling of a Seth Rollins statue, that when the curtains were drawn back to supposedly unveil the statue was missing, and in its place stood the icon, the vigilante Sting. Now, that was an amazing segment, as after Sting was unveiled, he attacked Seth Rollins, threw Seth Rollins out of the ring, and continued to taunt and seemingly challenge Seth Rollins, especially by holding up the WWE World Heavyweight Championship belt. Now, afterwards, and I haven't actually seen it, but afterwards on the WWE Network, Triple H made it official on Sunday, September the 20th, at Night of Champions. It will be Seth Rollins versus Sting for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Now, I've said it before, but I've been a huge fan of Sting for many, many years, since the late 1980s, when WCW came on terrestrial television here in the UK on Channel 3. Now, Sting is certainly one of the biggest and best wrestlers never to have held a WWE Championship. The ironic kind of thing is that he attacked Seth Rollins, who defeated John Cena on Sunday night at SummerSlam to win the United States Championship. And the United States Championship is the only remnant of WCW that is still active. You see, the WCW United States Championship that was held by the likes of Sting and Lex Luger and Ric Flair and Bret Hart and Goldberg, and I think Diamond Dallas Page held it, and Raven, and all those, so many great legendary wrestlers as well, is continued in WWE. The only championship, and yes, before people complain, it is the same championship, because let's get this right. I believe in around about March 26th, 2001, it was revealed that WWE had purchased WCW. That includes the championships. So that same championship, that United States Championship of WCW at that point in time, becomes WWE property, and although it was unified with the Intercontinental Championship for a while, it was brought back, it still is the same championship that was fought for in the NWA WCW for many years. In my opinion, it is, looking at the legacy, the lineage of that championship. And it's a championship that Sting coveted for many years. And you see, when Sting challenged Seth Rollins, it was an amazing moment. I honestly didn't think that I would see this happen. Now, obviously that leads to my question of, will we see Sting as WWE World Heavyweight Champion? Now, obviously there's a few answers to that. Well, basically it comes down to variations of two answers, really. No and yes. If you look at yes, whereas no is self-explanatory. If you look at yes, you think about why could we see Sting as WWE World Heavyweight Champion? Well, Triple H and Stephanie are running the show pretty much these days, even though Vince McMahon, as we witnessed on Raw, with Stephanie and Triple H in the audience singing happy birthday to Vince McMahon. And as to say, happy birthday Vince McMahon, 70 years old yesterday, or 70 years young, whichever term he prefers. And I hope he's around for many more years still. But, you know, the thing is with WWE and Triple H, well, first of all, Triple H, he's a historian when it comes to professional wrestling. He knows a lot of his stuff. Obviously, a lot of it's about WWE, the biggest company in the world, and, you know, it's a well-known fact that a few years ago, I believe it was for Christmas or a birthday, I think it was for Christmas, Stephanie McMahon actually had made personally actual framed photographs and display things of every WWE heavyweight champion that there had been to that point. Now, I don't know whether he's actually kept it up to date and added any new WWE champions since, so likes of Daniel Bryan, obviously Seth Rollins. I don't know whether that's been kept up to date or whether it's still at the stage that when Stephanie McMahon gave it. But we all know that Triple H loves his history. He loves the history of the business. He's a student of the game. That's why he's called The Game. And you know that it's a tremendous thing, at least, and that's one of the good things. A lot of people complain about Triple H and Stephanie leading WWE, and they're obviously going to take over at some point when Vince, I wouldn't say retires, unfortunately. Looks obviously probably more likely to pass away, but certainly they'll be running the show at one point. And at least in my mind, it's a positive thing that Triple H, he loves the wrestling business. You know, he's not one of these suits that WCW had in the later days, like the AOL Time Warner, who didn't understand wrestling, who didn't know the wrestling product, didn't grasp what was needed to be successful. At least that's a positive. And of course, WWE, they always love the biggest superstars, the biggest wrestling legends, Hall of Famers to be associated with their company. That's why we've seen the likes of the returns of the Ultimate Warrior, Arnie Skaaland was very much you know, a part of the early days of WWE, and his wife, his widow Betty, still appears at John Cena's side during events. Well, we've seen so many people return to WWE over the years. And of course, Bruno Sammartino is actually a great example of that. On the outs of WWE for so long, and you know, was back in the fold, as we saw footage of his statue being unveiled on Raw last night. Obviously, it was 2014, I think it was, the statue of him was unveiled. But WWE always wants the biggest names in wrestling to be associated with them. So it's entirely possible that we may see Sting be WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Sting, as I said, he's one of the best and biggest names never to have held a WWE Championship. Although that WWE United States Championship is the same championship that was in WCW, it's never been held by Sting under the WWE branding, and Sting has never held, obviously, any WWE Championship. He's only had one match, and that was, of course, at WrestleMania against Triple H. So it's very much, in my mind, a possibility that we may see Sting become WWE World Champion. Now, over the last night and throughout today, two things have really been going through my mind when it comes to the possibility of seeing, well, actually three things, of seeing Sting be WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Number one of the three, I never thought this would happen. I never thought that the possibility would be that Sting would be WWE World Heavyweight Champion. I followed Sting since the late 1980s, since before he won his first WCW World Heavyweight Championship, the Great American Bash 1990. And you know, I followed his career through all these years, the transformations that have taken place from the bleach blonde-haired, multicoloured face paint and outfit Sting, to the black-haired, multicoloured face paint, to the to the white and black, to the red and black, to the insane Joker look that he had for a while in TNA, to WWE. So people cannot, well, they could, but it's absolutely not true to accuse me or to say that I'm suddenly a Sting fan just because he's in WWE. Nah. I've been a fan of his for about 30 years. And he's one of my heroes, and I'll explain a bit more about that in a second. But he was loyal to WCW throughout all this time, and I don't really need to recap this, but he had offers from WWE to go there throughout his WCW tenure. He turned them down. He stayed till the end, till about March 26th of 2001 on the final Nitro. He wrestled Ric Flair. He stayed under contract till about 2002, and even after that, never went to WWE. And it's finally, and it's amazing, it's been almost a year since Sting made his debut at Survivor Series last year, costing the Authority, well, their authority, interfering in the Survivor Series elimination match for control of the company. Now, obviously, that kind of stipulation thing didn't last very long, and we were quite quickly back to where we are now with the Authority in charge. But Sting was loyal to WCW, and all these years, because nobody, unless you, especially in the higher days of WCW, the 96, 97, 98 period, many people did not actually think that WCW would ever fall, that WCW would ever go out of business, never mind being owned by WWE and the McMahon family. But it happened. And then when Sting went to TNA, I thought perhaps that's it. Sting will never go to WWE. Sting will never be a part of the WWE family. He has chosen, perhaps, to be the biggest superstar in professional wrestling, never to step foot in that company, to never take part in WWE. Yes, they've got the video library. I knew they would probably use it in some form or fashion, to have Sting on, like even before he signed the contracts, the Best of WCW and the Monday Night Wars, and anything they wish to release with WCW featured on it, they would obviously have to feature Sting on it. Even if it was a superstar profile of Diamond Dallas Page or the NWO or whatever, obviously, Sting was one of the greatest opponents, one of the greatest names in WCW, and I think probably, in my opinion, the biggest name in WCW, the best name in WCW. Obviously, every big name, from the Ric Flairs, the Lex Lugers, the Steiner brothers, went to WWE at one point. Sting did not. So I honestly never thought I would see Sting, go to WWE, and even when he fought at WrestleMania, I thought, he's obviously going to be used a match here with Triple H, possibly a match next year, and I'm still saying it's a possibility against The Undertaker at WrestleMania. It still remains a possibility in my opinion because the card hasn't been finalised. Undertaker's opponent, if he has one at WrestleMania 32, has not been announced. Sting's participation in the event has not been announced. No opponent for him either. So it's still very much a possibility. And I know WWE will be working, of course, on what they want for that show, even this far away from the event. They're stupid not to. It's the biggest event of the year. Everybody who complains and moans that even after one WrestleMania that WWE are working on the next, and that's stupid. It's common sense to do that. I never thought, I didn't think we would see Sting in this situation. Is it a token thing? Is it a possibility that this will be Sting's one shot, one opportunity, as Eminem once famously sang, to really grab it, to really, to be honest, will it be Sting's only opportunity? Is this going to be Sting's opportunity at the WWE Championship? If he loses, will this be his only opportunity at that championship? Will he walk away from professional wrestling, sports entertainment, at the end when he decides to call it quits, as one of the biggest, probably the biggest name never to have held that championship? Or is this his opportunity to take that championship, to defeat Seth Rollins and win it? Now, obviously, we've not seen the authority backing of the likes of J&J Security and Kane recently, which concerns me. We may see them return at Night of Champions. We may see them suddenly back up Seth Rollins, although I have to say, from the way that Triple H said, "Oh, don't worry," to Seth Rollins last night on Raw, if you watch it back, Triple H said, "Oh, don't worry, Seth, you'll get yours tonight." Sounded very ominous, so perhaps maybe Sting will grab the title with the authority turning their back finally on Seth Rollins. Who knows? But certainly, I never thought we would see this. I never thought that we would see the possibility of Sting ever becoming WWE Champion. I thought he would be used in a kind of a guest role, an occasional wrestling role, for a few matches before he hangs up the boots, before he, calls time on his career. Perhaps. I thought maybe, we'll see him in a few matches, but I never considered a WWE Championship opportunity like he now has for September the 20th, 2015, Night of Champions. I'm very much looking forward to seeing that and seeing whether Sting takes that WWE Championship, because I never thought, ever thought, that he would genuinely be in this position. Now, what I was thinking about number 2, this is a little bit personal. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of Sting. I've been a fan of Sting for about 30 years. And I'm meeting him. I'm going to meet Sting. I've said it before. I've talked about it before on this YouTube channel. But very soon, I will be meeting the man himself. In October, Sting is coming over from the US to the UK on a mini Q&A tour. I believe it's London, Manchester and Glasgow that are the 3 dates, October 5th, 6th and 7th. It's InsideTheRopes.co.uk that are bringing him over. I know the general admission tickets are still available. The meet and greet VIP tickets are sold out. But very soon I will finally be able to meet another one of my wrestling heroes. And I'm very much looking forward to it. Meeting him, I would have loved to have been at the Ric Flair tour just a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, financially, it fell in between the time where I just could not afford it. I was kind of offered possibility of going, but I just simply couldn't afford to travel there. Unfortunately, but I am definitely taking, and I bought tickets to meet Sting in Glasgow, October the 7th. I'm very much looking forward to it. And I'm really never with this possibility of Sting being WWE World Heavyweight Champion, it brings the possibility. Now, obviously, this is all not guaranteed. It may not happen, but there is a possibility that I might meet Sting as WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Now, I've never met the WWE World Champion before. I've never met somebody who is the current WWE World Champion before. I've been unfortunately very, very limited to the amount of superstars, legends that I have met. I've put up a video, superstars, legends and Hall of Famers. I've been very limited to the amount of people that I met, unfortunately. But the possibility of meeting Sting when he is WWE World Heavyweight Champion would be amazing. Now, if he wins the championship, would he be allowed to bring over a WWE Championship belt with him? I genuinely don't know the answer to that. That would be entirely up to WWE. I think honestly it would be a great thing for the fans, for WWE to allow him to do so. I think it would be a fantastic thing. Even if WWE insists on the WWE World Championship belt being in every meet and greet photograph, because I know in Glasgow it's I believe it's David J. Wilson who is taking the photos at that event, so I have absolutely no concerns about how the photo will be taken, because David J. Wilson is, I think, the top photographer when it comes to wrestling events in Scotland. So I've seen much of his work over many companies over the past few years, and he does excellent work. So anybody going to the Glasgow event, I don't know who's going to be the photographer at the other two events, but certainly the Glasgow event, the pictures will be taken. The pictures will be okayed by him, I'm sure. Before you move on, he'll make sure that the photograph when he takes it is absolutely perfect, and it's all in focus, so you can see it clearly, the picture's clear and everything like that. So I have absolutely no concerns about that. If WWE was to insist that the WWE Championship belt is in every photograph, so me and Sting is carrying the WWE Championship on his shoulder, fine, that is fine, that would be perfect, because meeting a guy that I followed very much in WCW, to meet him as WWE Championship, it would blow my mind. It genuinely blow my mind, because meet such a WCW icon. Like I said, I grew up a WCW fan, more WCW than WWE. Very much, as I said, enjoy watching some of the stuff on the WWE Network. Hope there's more Nitros to come. They've been quite a bit slow in updating them, but they've still got hours actually of Nitros to even sit down and watch. So to meet Sting at WCW, and he is called the franchise of WCW for a reason, and forget Shane Douglas, and I'm sure Shane Douglas calls himself the franchise for a reason, but so I said before, he was the franchise of WCW, the only guy never to go to WWE or any other company and then return. And so to meet Sting, a guy I've followed for all these years, and to meet him when there's a possibility that he will be WWE World Heavyweight Champion, is mind-blowing. So that would be just an amazing thing. It would be great publicity thing for WWE to allow him to bring over a championship belt. Like I said, I don't know whether they would allow him to do it, whether he would be allowed to have any particular picture with the WWE Championship belt, because it's not a WWE related event. It's inside the ropes. It's nothing to do with WWE. It was signed I think it's obviously it's kind of independently from WWE, but to meet him as WWE Champion would be amazing. I'm genuinely looking forward to October the 7th at the Garage in Glasgow to meet the Icon Sting. Can't wait. Hopefully I'll try and think of a really good question to ask him, because I desperately wanting to ask a question to the great man himself. Now, the third and final thing that really struck me last night about Sting potentially being WWE World Champion is the whole situation with Seth Rollins as well. Now, last night on Raw, we saw Jon Stewart being joined in the ring by Ric Flair and John Cena. Now, Jon Stewart explained that he thought it was the right thing to do in costing John Cena the WWE World Heavyweight Championship opportunity during SummerSlam, because he did not want John Cena to tie Ric Flair as being 16-time World Champion. Now, how does this all tie in with Sting? I hear you asking. Well, Sting has the opportunity to tie Ric Flair himself. Now, some people will disagree with this, and I slightly disagree with this myself. The fact is, Sting, looking at Wikipedia, is listed as a 15-time world champion. He won the championship from Ric Flair at the Great American Bash, July 1990. It was then WCW World Championship was also the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. So he's an NWA World Champion. He held the WCW World Heavyweight Championship 6 times. He also held the WCW International World Heavyweight Championship twice. Now, the WCW International Championship was the championships that were created when Ric Flair returned to WCW after his WWE run in the early 90s. Now, Ric Flair was recognised as the WCW World Champion when he left. And that is obviously one of the reasons why he had the big, what is known as the big gold belt with him. And that is obviously why, you know, there was so much kerfuffle about him going to WWE and showing that belt on television, because he had paid a deposit in order, as a kind of a security deposit, to pay for any damages if the belt was to get lost or damaged. Then the WCW, the NWA had, well, really I think it was, by that time it was around about WCW. By the way, keep it simple, WCW had that amount of money that Ric Flair had paid, and if the belt was damaged or lost, they would use that money to either repair or replace the championship belt, which is obviously needed. They couldn't go without a championship belt for very long. So, you know, it's a possibility. So, you know, when Ric Flair returned to WCW, the championship that had been held as the WCW Championship since Ric Flair's departure, which was actually, I believe it was Barry, no, it was Barry Windham versus Lex Luger inside a steel cage, I believe it was, when after Ric Flair's departure, the WCW Championship was decided. And I believe, I can't remember exactly what the event was, but I believe that was the event that Harley Race came out and took Lex Luger's side and started managing Lex Luger, and Luger walked out as the WCW World Champion, actually holding up an old belt that they had on them at that time that he only very quickly held up, because as Lex Luger, I believe he may have talked about it either in his book or on the Woo Nation podcast, but they didn't want the crowd to see it was the real WCW Championship belt. It was kind of why they introduced a belt that we see all the pictures of Ron Simmons when it's Black History Month, and when we see you know, the different design from the big gold belt being used by the likes of Ron Simmons during that time period. And then when Ric Flair returned to WCW, they split the championship. They kind of recognised Ric Flair as still the WCW World Championship, so there was 2 World Championships in WCW at that time. And then moving on in his career, Sting obviously won the NWA World Championship one time when TNA, Impact, now is Impact Wrestling, had that championship, won the TNA World Heavyweight Championship when that became its own thing. He won that 4 times, and I don't kind of recognise this, but he was also the World Wrestling All-Stars heavyweight champion. I believe he won it in Switzerland from Lex Luger. It was a very short-lived promotion of some of the top names from likes of WCW that did an international tour. I think the company only lasted about 2 years, I think, but it's listed on Wikipedia, and many people actually recognise that as a world championship. So there's a possibility, if you recognise that WWE Championship, and if you recognise all those championships as world championships, that in fact there's a possibility of not John Cena tying Ric Flair as 16-time world champion, but there is also there's possibility of Sting, one of Ric Flair's greatest opponents, tying Ric Flair. Sting tying Ric Flair as 16-time world champion. It certainly is a mouth-watering situation in my opinion. Obviously, with this length of the video is what I really am interested in. I think it should be a great. I'm not sure whether it'll be a great match. I think Seth Rollins will do most of the work, but since it launched, since the day it launched in the UK, I've had a WWE Network subscription. I mean, official just a couple of days before the official launch in the UK, not the US launch. I've had it, but I've certainly got a WWE Network subscription. I'm very much looking forward to seeing this match, seeing Seth Rollins versus Sting on Sunday, the 20th of September, 2015. To see whether we will finally see Sting, one of the biggest wrestling legends, one of the biggest names in this industry, to take his place as WWE World Heavyweight Champion? Will Sting win this championship, or will he remain one of the greatest never to have won the WWE World Heavyweight Championship?